Hi, this is Kim Watson. Welcome to this week's Outlook. Before I get on and talk about the technicals, I just wanted to run through this week's economic diary. And before that, even just mulling over Friday's data and a little bit of Trumpism. So the Friday's data was, of course, the non-farm payrolls. A bit of a mixed bag. Whilst there was more jobs created, the overall employment data or employment figures, unemployment rose slightly. And also wage growth wasn't as high as expected. Now, when central bankers are looking at inflation, they're really looking for wage growth more than anything else. It's okay that consumers are out there borrowing money to buy things and create inflation, but what they really want to be seeing is them earning more to create inflation, and that's more genuine inflation, and that's when they start putting interest rate increases through. So I would imagine that the potential or a potential increase in March now may just be delayed a little bit. We'll see, but that was the next sort of meeting. Or that is the next meeting. It'll be interesting to see if the outcome of that. But it's probably taking off some weight off the potential of an increase. Now, Trump's not really getting to grips with things as quick as some are expecting, and the dollar growth and strength may be just too much. He said it himself and suggested that there's the currencies like the euro, which are showing us weaker than they should be. And well, he's really pushing and really teasing with the markets and suggesting, particularly Germany are hiding behind the weak euro. But that's not an unknown fact. They've been doing that for years, and that's why they like the euro so much, because it allows them to trade at low um, currency levels relative to what they would be if they were using their own German mark, for example. Anyway, so that in itself, we're on a bit of a knife edge where we're sitting at the moment. I was talking about it in the room earlier on. We could be seeing that the euro, the pound, etc., the majors start strengthening against the US dollar, following all the rhetoric, etc. But when you start comparing the economies, and that's where the big money sort of starts looking, well, which economy is going to be picking up and being strong? Where's the likely interest rate increases? And I guess it still really points towards the US dollar to some extent. That's not to say that we won't see some US dollar selling at some points, but certainly we could see strength coming through from that more more potential in the midterm than the likes of the euro, which still needs a lot of work. Okay, let's have a look at this week's data. And well, Tuesday, starting with tomorrow, we got the Australian Reserve Bank base rate coming out at 3.30. Then moving on to Wednesday, the real data there is the EU economic forecast. I believe they're due out at 10 o'clock. There's I use Forex Factory for a calendar, and that's not really got anything on it at the moment. So anyway, 10 o'clock is the figure I've seen elsewhere. Later on in the day on Wednesday, we got the Bank of England MPC member, Cunliffe, speaking at 1 o'clock. He's addressing a meeting in Birmingham Way, but could always create volatility, so we've got to watch out for that. And then the only other figure on Wednesday of significance, crude oil data coming out at 3.30. It can give the Canadian dollar certainly a push from time to time. That leads us into Thursday. We got the Aussie Reserve Bank governor speaking at 9 a.m. in the morning at dinner in Australia, so that could well create some volatility around 9 o'clock for the Aussie dollar. And then speakers later in on Thursday, we've got the FOMC voter Evans at 10 past 6 speaking, and then the Bank of England Governor Carney speaking at 6:30 p.m. that is. So some potential volatility late on Thursday. Moving towards Friday, and well, it's the UK manufacturing production numbers out, the first real sort of key economic data out the week really. This can really give us a bit of a kicker, so it'll be important to see what those numbers at 9:30. The CAD employment data comes out on its own at 1:30. So could be a bit tradable, could get some good volatility in the Canadian dollar at 130. And then we've got the US preliminary consumer sentiment at 3 o'clock. So of all weeks, this is always the quieter week. We always have to wait, as I said, for the likes of the manufacturing production data that comes out. So it could be quite a quietish week, but there are potential speakers. Okay, I'm going to switch over and let's have a look at the technicals. So starting with the euro dollar first, and well, from this weekly picture, you can see we ran into the weekly 21 again. We've run through it a little bit actually in the end, but at the moment we're seeing I saw some weakness in the shorter term frame, particularly the 4 hours between the 31st and the on the second there. We saw some divergence kicking through there and some weakness. Now I've started a bit of a swing short from that sort of signal a little bit slightly later in than I'd have liked to have been in that position, but in a short position, looking for the monthly pivot as a potential for the potential downside. Now it's not a million miles away. There are quite a number of other points where we could find some support along there. That we've already got the daily 21 below us, but that's, I say, it's already been hit. We could run down toward, if we move through the monthly pivot, I say it's a target, it's an initial sort of target for the swing. If we push through there, I'm really looking at that 50 MA 34 zone, which comes in with the 4 hourly 200, etc. So plenty of potential for it to move south towards that area. I've put a trend line on here. The one thing it does mean, it will be looking to break that sort of upward trend that we're effectively still sitting in. So there's a sort of a bit of optimism on it coming back to the monthly pivot, but there's always the stats there. It may just get to the monthly pivot and stall. As I say, we'll see how that works its way out. It's quite mixed. There's mixed data coming through, and we could see as we run through the week some variables there. Okay, looking at the pound dollar, let's come out the bigger picture here. And again, weekly wise, we ran in and ran through for a short while. The weekly 21, it's just holding again though, and it's left it erring a little bit on the bearish side there. Although today, for the majority of the day, it's been holding up. It's sold off a little bit now, back towards its monthly pivot, and there's still that potential that it could be coming down to the monthly pivot as we run into tomorrow and the rest of the week. That said, there is an untouched weekly pivot above on cable, and I think the way it's holding up, there are certainly possibilities if you see a bounce off these prior low there, that monthly pivot, start seeing it bounce, that could be a reasonable target, maybe for a short-term swing. Okay, dollar yen. Looking scope here. I keep talking about this weekly 21, and it's eventually nearly there now. So there is the potential we could pull back a little bit further into that. Certainly seeing signs of some strength. It's once again, it's broken the prior lows there today. I have got some sort of, if it does start giving up the ghost a little bit here, to the upside and start moving up, well, we have got the weekly pivot, monthly pivot above as targets potentially there. There is a sort of, as I say, a bit of weakness maybe on the 4 hourly. I was looking at some signs. Yeah, there's some divergence going on there, the MACD wise. Side of that, pretty choppy going across here. So I'd really be looking for a secondary sort of long side. Otherwise, it's really watching. We've tapped around these lows 3 times now. If it keeps on pushing this way, maybe we'll see more of a correction to the downside, in which case we'd really be looking towards the monthly S1 and that daily 100 MA, and potentially, if it keeps on in that sort of manner, we've got the 200 that sort of would be a decent target below that as we run through the month. As I said though, depends how we sit through here. If we get back above the 4 hourly 8, well, we could be on for the weekly pivot, and any decent move, we could still the potential of that monthly pivot. Okay, Aussie dollar. Now the Aussies being the stronger of many of the majors at the moment against the US dollar, and made good progress last week, whereas a lot of them have uh, been sort of slipping back quite easily. But again, we're still in this zone that I've left it for a long time. But if we get towards that sort of 78 500, just over that, was it 75 574 sort of zone? I mean, it's had so many knocks on that. Perhaps it will be able to push on. Now, as I said, there's some important data coming up for the Aussie dollar this week, so it'll be quite key to see how that works its way through. Looking though purely at the technicals, let's forget the fundamentals for a moment. It's come back. It's already hit the weekly pivot now today. Um, Beyond that, we could see a bigger correction, possibly if we see the other pairs dragging down as well, and the dollar gaining any strength here. We could see a move back towards that daily 21. Hasn't touched it for quite some time. Most of the last month, actually, it skipped it, so there is the possibility if it does sell off, get through the 8 moving average, could see more of a movement. And if the data isn't good this week, well, it opens the road back for the monthly pivots to be hit. Now that, in my experience of the Aussie dollar, could happen in an overnight session. So be careful there. Okay, Canadian dollar. This has been just playing me around for ages. Last week it carried on, breaking through those lows there, making a sort of a new weekly low, near-term low. I'm still sort of seeing if we can get right back to that 127 area. It was looking good for it earlier on, but it soon changes its picture, but there's still potential. We're not too far out. We're already into the weekly R1. We're not too far away from that monthly pivot now. It'll be interesting to see if we can get up there, the reaction to that. As I said, there's data out later in the week which may affect that. Oil's been holding up pretty well up until now, he says, and he has a quick look, and of course it's taken a bit of a daily dive, but it's been holding, or had been holding quite well. If it starts breaking below the monthly pivot, well, that puts more pressure on starting to get back down towards the 50 zone. It will put upward pressure on the Canadian dollar. Okay, that's it for me. So I hope you have a great week. I'll be back next week. Bye for now.